the digital side of retail. And what we want to hear is how SM is actually sort of trailblazing also in the transformation of retail in the Philippines, retail globalization, and a fellow Atenista, schoolmate. So I would like to invite Dana and Nikki. Please join us here on stage. I have thought-provoking questions for each of you, and but please take your time to share your insights with us. Using my código. Let's start with you, Dana. So, e-commerce, the observation is that e-commerce has a slower start in the Philippines. Sort of, we seem to be doing a catch-up. And, despite all they say about Filipinos' heavy consumption of social media, people seem to be attached to their phones, or maybe it's because they have no choice because they're in traffic the whole day. But with that in mind, why is it that when it comes to e-commerce, when it comes to, and I think it was pointed out earlier, that we actually have a very low rate of e-commerce usage for a country that has a very high rate of social media usage? What would be your insight on that observation? And then let me add on another question about what would be sort of the proper growth drivers for e-commerce in the Philippines. What you see as the way that we can actually ratchet up or level up in e-commerce.
Hello, testing. So hi everyone, I'm Dana de la Vega, so I work at Zalora Philippines. Thanks for the question. I think the way to look at it is, it's true. So the Philippines is playing catch up, and that's mostly because of two things. So the first one is the infrastructure for e-commerce in any country wasn't as mature in the Philippines as it was, let's say, in Singapore or in Indonesia. So to give an example, let's say the internet in the Philippines. Compare our internet speed to all the other countries, and I don't even need to say more. We can all agree that that's one of the bigger things that we've always been playing catch up on. The second would be the logistics infrastructure. There's a reason why players like Amazon haven't gotten in the Philippines yet. It's because it's so hard to navigate through. Okay, let's say we have Waze, and then we can auto-route our riders on how to best deliver the packages. But then would Waze know the little, esquinitas or the side streets that only the riders would know? So there's nuances that are unique to our country that the infrastructure wasn't mature enough to handle or to welcome e-commerce as easily as in other countries, for example. And I guess the second one for me also is the culture. So you were comparing e-commerce with social media usage. And I think, let's say, the culture of the Philippines is we're very social to begin with. Everyone always says that Filipinos are the happiest people, we're the #1 selfie takers, and that was even before social media. The phone to human ratio in the Philippines is that people have more phones. They have 2 to 3 phones per person. So I think that already tells us that social media is a whole other story compared to e-commerce. Whereas with social media, it wasn't that big of a change. Filipinos already are vain in a good way. They like sharing. They like their communities and sharing with other people, being close to their friends and family. And so social media was just a tool to make that easier for them. Whereas e-commerce, the benefits of that the benefits weren't as clear to Filipinos. So you can sell e-commerce by saying, okay, I'm selling you convenience. You don't have to leave the house to buy something you need. But then a Filipino would say, you're right, I don't have to leave the store. I mean, I don't have to leave the street because there's a sari-sari store down the street. I don't have to leave the city. There's a mall everywhere I go. So the benefits weren't as clear. You can sell things like, okay, e-commerce brings you assortment. But like, as you mentioned, we're in SM and they say we have it all for you. So if you have SM all over the Philippines and then you have Zalora saying, okay, we can bring you these brands and those brands, then you're not really selling much more. So I think it's those two things with the Philippines, with e-commerce and social media. One, the infrastructure wasn't as mature as it is now. And second, we're still trying to convince so many people to get on e-commerce because the advantages aren't as clear. And I think with all the players, that's one of the bigger hurdles that we're all trying to solve at the moment.
Just a quick follow-on. The idea that when the Philippines is such a great disparity in wealth distribution, so they say that to a large extent the Philippines is really heavily underbanked. So most Filipinos are actually, what they call them the unbankable or not banked, other than part of the banking system. What's your take on that? Because that means that maybe so few really use credit cards or the financial means of e-commerce.
So that's true. So, for example, we're looking at Zalora data, just as our data said, we know that 70% of our purchases are still cash on delivery. And the learning here is that, like with e-commerce or with coming into a country like ours, where, as you mentioned, the wealth disparity is quite large, it's important for retailers or e-commerce players to localize. So what this means is, let's say we have a headquarters in Singapore and they're telling us that cash on delivery is a bad idea. And we went up to them saying, no, it's going to work, and that's exactly what we need to win in the Philippines. So it's localizing based on the insights that you have about your market. So you're right, a bunch of Filipinos still aren't on credit cards, but we're meeting that with cash on delivery, with integrations with GCash, with PayMaya. There are so many new alternatives to sort of adapt to what your customers are ready for. We're not trying to disrupt their behavior to force them to shop online. We're trying to slowly show them that, okay, you're uncomfortable with giving us your credit card details, that's fine. We'll have a rider go to your doorstep and you can hand over the cash to him. So it's slowly mitigating the risks and like the apprehensions that they have with payments being just one of them.
Thank you. Okay, Boss Nikki. SM Group, yes.
So, Lodi, if I may, because I want to make sure that the audience has stayed this long. Can I add to the questions that you asked earlier?
Sure.
Only just to share what I've seen. You mentioned Indonesia earlier, and I worked for Indonesia for 11 years in a telco company. And it's quite intriguing to me that I see that the Indonesian e-commerce market is about, if I'm not mistaken, 10, if not 30 times bigger than it is in the Philippines. And I've looked at it in several angles on my own. And it's nice to talk about this because I'm not talking as an SM executive. But on infrastructure, it's actually, I've looked at that internet speed. And GSMA has a rating, GSMA, Global Society for Mobile Association, has a rating, and it says the Philippines has a higher propensity for mobile internet adoption than Indonesia because of infrastructure, affordability, content, and the availability of content in a language that we understand than Indonesia, and yet Indonesia is far ahead. So I'm not really sure if it's infrastructural, though at times I can really sense that internet is slower in the Philippines than it is in Indonesia. You should try internet in Indonesia. But if you have time, please check Lazada Philippines and Lazada Indonesia. Try to look for the same blouse that you can find in the Philippines that it is in Indonesia. It will be the same blouse. It will be the same image. It will be from Taobao. And it will be 25% cheaper in Indonesia than it is in the Philippines for the same blouse, by the same supplier. My view, and and you're here, I'll extend myself on this one. I think it's a lack of competition. There are 6 major dominant players on e-commerce in Indonesia. And you can bet your life that they're hitting each other on price. So that revolution we have not yet enjoyed. so I'm not sure about Zalora. Culture. You said culture, and it's nice to talk about culture because I've looked at the GDP comparison between Indonesia and the Philippines, and we probably earn the same per capita. It's not so much Indonesia is ahead of Philippines. It's roughly the same. But one thing I observed, and this is an observation, in the Philippines, whenever I ask someone, can you text me or can you call me with packages or whatever? Sir, pasensya na, wala akong load. You notice that? We are massive consumers of daily load, daily packet load. And for the most of the time, a lot of our mobile consumers, though we have the highest social media consumption, possibly in Asia, if not the world, we don't have any load for it. You know why? Facebook is free. We are spoiled. So unlike what it is in other markets, we get by with a lot of social media activity because it's been marketed as a free service. So those two will not go together until people start paying for their internet access and you realize just how much penetration you can really get from e-commerce. If you're going to browse an e-commerce site on your mobile phone and you don't have load, what's going to happen? It's not going to work. But Facebook does. This is for free. So I really want to make your money's worth on this one by sharing this. Third on payment, and I saw a stat, 70% of deliveries are cash on delivery. Do you know how much logistical nightmare that creates for retailers like you? It's bad enough as it is that we pay for the delivery because if we give it for free, then we have to pay for it. Somebody said nothing is free, somebody gets paid. Somebody has to be paid. It's bad enough as it is that we pay for it to be delivered. If it gets rejected because it's cash on delivery, that product has to come back to our warehouse, right? And who will pay for that again? It's harsh to have an environment that has 70% of online purchases on cash on delivery. And it goes back to infrastructure. One of the things that you'll notice in Indonesia that's not prevalent in the Philippines is alternative forms of online payment. Do you know how easy it is to transfer money from bank to bank across banks in Indonesia? A retailer in Indonesia will tell you, one time I was buying something in Indonesia and I said, oh my God, I don't have cash. I told the seller, sir, it's okay. You can transfer to my bank account. So bank-to-bank transfer among third-party banks is very easy in Indonesia. It's as open as your jeepney window, and low cost or free. There is a charge for it. And in fact, if you look at banking industries in Indonesia, 1/3 of their business revenues come from third-party transfer fees. So it's as significant as interest income or insurance fees. I don't know if you check bank statements here in the Philippines, but the amount of possibly, and I know this, it's public document, BDO has 24%. So we're probably a very active third-party payment provider because we're big and we facilitate it. But in Indonesia, the minimum is 35%. So alternative forms of payment need to happen for this e-commerce revolution to happen as much as it is in Indonesia. So that's my 2 cents worth. I hope you had the energy to hear through that. But I just want to make sure that I'm giving you your time's worth for staying this long.
I've taken note. But so the last item you talked about is solved by a BSP reform measure or circular?
Potentially, yes. Potentially, yes. When I left the Philippines about some years back, some weeks back, it was so hard to get banks to do interbank transfer. They were so protective of their turf. But that was not the case in Indonesia. So I don't know.
Okay. Now let's go back to you, Nikki. And then now you're going to talk about SM. Okay. Now, SM is, as you know, the undisputed leader in Philippine retailing. But sometimes the stories of the giants going the way of the dinosaurs if they don't keep up with the times. So there's all this talk about digitalization and globalization. What is SM's response and action, and I suppose you're probably in the thick of it, into this new digital age?
So I think you really set this up, Tony, because the Zalora here, SM is here. So it's really like, we're the yin and yang, but that's nice. It's nice to sit beside Dana here in front. So yes, 70 malls, 18,000 tenants, 2,000 stores of which we own or co-own, and gazillions of SKUs. So we are the incumbent. So we're the glass house that everybody's throwing rocks at. So it's not a nice place to be in. We're the incumbent. But if you will allow me, and this is another test of your energy, to answer your question, if I may, I'd like to take you or let you listen to where you'll find the answer to your question. So if we have it queued, can we just play where we will find the answer to your question, Tony, if we may? So 30 seconds of your energy.
Come on in, look at what we've got. There's so much more in just one stop. Here at SM, we've got it all. We've got it. Lots of excitement, fashion. We've got a shopping experience for everyone. At SM, it's all at SM. Here at SM, we've got it all for you.
Okay, so 2 questions. How many of you have heard that jingle before? Good. Second question, how many of you have heard that more than a year ago? More than a year ago.
The old version, yes.
You're a very smart listener. So those who said you've heard it more than a year ago, you're wrong, because that jingle was actually just used this month for our 60th anniversary. But the melody is familiar. It's been in use since 1980.
Yes.
So the answer to your question is, we will continue to face globalization and competition by capitalizing on what is familiar, but continuously updating attributes that will help keep us relevant moving forward in the future. And that song says a lot. SM. You know, my wife had to warn me when we came back, says, but can you please stop saying you work for Schumart? Nobody calls it Schumart anymore. So, first dose of reality when I came back to the Philippines. We've evolved. I'm so happy there were some millennials there who were doing a choreography. So I hope you heard it for the first time. Dance choreography. So the evolution, it's evolution. It's not going to be revolutionary. We're not going to be replacing the old and coming up with something new. We will evolve. It will be additive. So as you know, our roadmap is simple: from a shoe store to a department store to a mall. We've moved from curating. Curation is a nice word. I think you use it in e-commerce. We've moved from curating shoes to creating wares, clothes, appliances, to curating stores and experiences. So we've moved from delivering on your style needs to delivering on your lifestyle needs. The path moving forward, and I think everybody has been trying to talk about it, is it goes back to the consumer. It goes back to finding, we have a lot of products, but our products won't move if we're not going to deliver something that's going to be relevant to the customers we serve in an experience that they would like. So when that goes back to the jingle. That jingle used to say, we've got toys, shoes, bags, and everything. It has moved to fun, excitement, and convenience. So SM is actually, if you haven't noticed, is selling experiences. Can you imagine having this convention in the past in a mall? You know how much of you I saw having lunch in the food court? In the past, we would have this in PICC, where we will have, travel far, and we don't know what we're going to eat, what the organizers will serve. But now it's like, let's all find our way in the mall and eat whatever you want. So that's the roadmap.
Do you have an insight, Zalora?
I don't think we're competitors or yin and yang.
Yes.
I think, to be truthful, what e-commerce is trying to do is trying to bring the excellent customer experience you have offline in your malls to their homes. So we're learning a lot from the incumbents like SM and then just trying to translate it to online. So one of the ways where I see it works best, for example, is with like our pop-up stores. So it's a mix of online and offline. You're trying to get people who are scared to go online. You're meeting them in the middle with a store where you can't buy the item, but it's in the mall. You have your iPads and you can shop on Zalora, but then at the end we tell you, okay, we'll just deliver it to your house. So you're meeting them in the middle. And another alternative also is we can deliver it to the counters in SM. That's one of the things I'm sure you know also. So Lazada and Zalora, they're all looking to have pickup points at the malls because as much as we'll never permanently get people out of the mall, especially Filipinos. So it's just meeting them in the middle. And I think like moving forward, the future isn't one like beating the other. It's trying to find synergies.
So you can complement each other.
Yeah, exactly.
But Nikki, are there plans for e-commerce for SM?
There are plans. I think we have already mentioned it in the past that there are activities going on that will put us in the format of online. You're all familiar that we are in Lazada. If any of you are visiting Lazada and you find that you're not ordering yet anything, well, they moved us out. So we're going to put up our own online store. And I love what Dana said. We'll help you promote your click and collect because it's going to be fun to pick up their goods in the mall. That's where we want them to go.
Any questions from the audience for our two panelists? Must have been energized already by that song.
Questions?
No? No questions? Yes, Lala.
A little bit more energy than the rest of us.
Can you get your insights on Amazon and its entry in the Philippines?
Okay. Amazon. Can I change your question? Can I give you my insights about Alibaba?
Or on both.
Or in both. It's interesting. For the longest time, I was wondering why Alibaba or Amazon would be a threat. And it took some time for me to discover where they, apart from the analytics, and they do a really good job about it. And there's a lot of things you can copy from Amazon on doing analytics and preferential-based marketing or nudge marketing. Now, first, and you've seen one of the videos, they will not exist on online alone, so they'll go to offline. That's an outright threat. The second is they will bring technology. And you've seen it, Alibaba, when they acquire a store, they come in with their, not just the hardware, but they come in with their software, they come in with their own people with good experience on online retailing. And they'll change your inventory management system, and they'll change your customer loyalty management system. They'll plug it in. And the third thing they'll plug in is cash. And they're gonna come, and Alibaba in particular is gonna come in with at least $1 billion war spend. And what they're gonna do with that is they're going to accelerate the competitive activity that's going to happen online. And pretty soon, the 28% discount that we find in Lazada, Indonesia, is suddenly going to happen as well here in the Philippines because all of that $1 billion is going to go straight to marketing promotion. So I look at it from that perspective. So there may be some time, as we discussed, there's some infrastructure things that would make adoption slow. But the time will come. And we'll have to prepare for that.
Are you satisfied with that answer?
Can you give us some timelines? Like, I've been hearing about Amazon's plans in Southeast Asia, which includes the Philippines, as well as Alibaba's moves further into Southeast Asia again. But it's been quite a while, so I've just been reading. When is this happening? In almost all the business conferences I've them, it's always at the back of other people's minds. So I just wanted to know, can you like give us, when is this happening? Next year, in 5 years, in 10 years?
Can I give you my wish list? I hope it happens in 10 years. But your knowledge is as good as what I know. I only hear things. I know they're coming. In fact, what I hear is they're recruiting, if not they've already recruited. So actually, it was quite intriguing that Tony's coach was here earlier and she knows so much of Alibaba. So I was wondering, is it really just because of a friend in P&G who is now in Alibaba, or she's already getting the corporate profile and beginning to be advised of the kind of personalities or attributes they need in future employees here in the Philippines. So I have no idea. I cannot tell you whether it's in months or years, but I know they're coming because that's what I hear. They're in here somewhere. Must be in the audience.
What I hear on the word on the e-commerce street is, so they already started in Singapore, and they're looking for a logistics hub, so a centralized hub where in Southeast Asia where they can source and return like all of the other shipments. So what I've heard, and this is just gossip, that their primary struggle is that, so navigating the logistics of shipments across the countries in Southeast Asia, and also finding like where they want their headquarters, where the warehouse to be, because with things like with like the assortment that they have, it's going to be one of their primary considerations. Do they want it in a centralized area? Do they want it near the airport? Do they want it in the province where there's more land? That's what I heard is one of the things that's keeping them sort of in the background at the moment. Yeah.
Wait till they get hold of the analytics that they're doing in the Ateneo at this time with Reina.
Ateneo Analytics. That's different from Cambridge Analytics.
Analytica.
I will not give you any more clues, Tony. You might spill into the competition. Okay.
So I think some very important insights, especially what you said about competition. So anyone else has a question for our panelists? Or you have some concerns about Amazon or Alibaba, or maybe any insight on the future? If not, then let us thank our two guests who were kind enough to stay the whole time, waited for this panel. And thank you for everyone else for waiting. Now I hope the next activity is going to prove to be at least a reward for